Hello everyone, this is Ronette Remolasio Abanto, taking up Masters of Arts in Teaching major in Technical English. Today I am going to discuss with you the last part of the chapter 2 of our lesson. My topics are, first, intelligence, its meaning, theories, measurement, and nature. Second one is the mental health and mental hygiene. Third one is the stress management. And lastly, psychology and education of children with special needs. So let's start with my first topic, which is intelligence. Intelligence, as defined by APA or American Association of Psychologists, is, is, is an individual's ability to understand complex ideas, to adapt effectively to environment, to learn from experience, to engage in various forms of reasoning, and to overcome obstacles by taking thought. Although psychologists have engaged in thousands of studies on intelligence, they do not quite agree on what intelligence is. Psychologists have therefore developed theories to help them understand and define intelligence. So here it is. Theories of intelligence. In 1904, British psychologist Charles Spearman suggested that the behaviors we consider intelligent have a common underlying factor that he labeled G for general intelligence, or broad reasoning and problem-solving abilities. Spearman supported his view by noting that people who excel in one area, for example, vocabulary, are also likely to excel in others, for example again, math. But he also noted that even the most capable people are relatively superior in some areas, such as music, business, or poetry. For this reason, he suggested that specific or S factors account for specific abilities. Next theory is the theory of primary mental abilities by Louis Thurstone. Louis Thurstone, an American psychologist, analyzed tests of specific abilities and concluded that Spearman had oversimplified intelligence. Thurstone's data suggested the presence of 7 specific factors, such as word fluency, verbal comprehension, number, space, memory, perceptual speed, and reasoning, which he labeled primary mental abilities. Thurstone's primary mental abilities contain the types of items measured on the most widely used intelligence tests today. The question remains as to whether his primary mental abilities are distinct or whether they are different ways of assessing G. Next is the theory of multiple intelligence by Howard Gardner. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences proposes instead that there are a number of intelligences, not just one. Gardner refers to each kind of intelligence in his theory as an intelligence because they can differ so much. Two of these intelligences are familiar ones, such as the linguistic or the language ability and the logic smart or the logical mathematical ability. Gardner also refers, however, to bodily kinesthetic talents such as dancing and for those athletes, and the musical talent, the spatial relationship skills, and two kinds of personal intelligence such as interpersonal and intrapersonal. In 2001, Gardner more recently added naturalist intelligence and existential intelligence. When we say naturalist intelligence, it refers to the ability to look at natural events such as kind of animals, plants, or the stars above, or to develop insights into the nature and the laws that govern their behavior. While on the other hand, existential behavior or existential Intelligence means dealing with the larger philosophical issues of life. According to Gardner, one can compose symphonies or advance mathematical theory, yet be average in, say, language and personal skills. So we don't know. Critics of Gardner's view agree that people function more intelligently in some aspects of life than in others. They also agree that many people have special talents such as bodily kinesthetic talents, even if their overall intelligence is average. But these critics question whether such talents are best thought of as intelligences or special talents. Language skills, reasoning ability, and ability to solve math problems seem to be more closely related to the musical or gymnastic talent to what most people mean by intelligence. Next is the triarchic theory of intelligence by Robert Sternberg. Psychologist Robert Sternberg has constructed a three-pronged or triarchic theory of intelligence that includes analytical intelligence, creative intelligence, and practical intelligence. Analytical intelligence can be defined as academic ability. It enables us to solve problems and acquire new knowledge, and it is the type of intelligence measured by a standard intelligence test. Problem-solving skills include encoding information, combining and comparing bits of information, and generating a solution. Next is creative intelligence. It is defined by the ability to cope with novel situations and generate many possible solutions to problems. It is creative to quickly relate novel situations to familiar situations, such as to perceive similarities and differences. Psychologists who consider creativity to be separate from analytical intelligence or academic ability note that there is only a moderate relationship between academic ability and creativity. To Sternberg, however, creativity is a form of intelligence. Lastly, practical intelligence, or which we also known as street smarts. It enables people to deal with other people, including difficult people, and to meet the demands of their environment. For example, keeping a job by adapting one's behavior to the employer's requirements is adaptive. But if the employer is making unreasonable demands, finding a more suitable job is also adaptive. Street smarts appear to help people get by in the real world, especially with other people, but are not particularly predictive of academic success. Next theory is a theory developed by Peter Salovey and John Mayer. According to them, social and emotional skills are a form of intelligence just as academic skills. Emotional skills resembles two of Gardner's intelligences, such as intrapersonal and interpersonal skills. It also involves self-insight and self-control, the abilities to recognize and regulate one's mood. Failure to develop emotional intelligence is connected with poor ability to cope with stress, depression, and aggressive behavior. Next is, or lastly, the theory of creativity and intelligence. Think of artists, musicians, poets, scientists, and other creative individuals who innovate research methods. Like the concept of intelligence, the concept of creativity has been difficult to define. Research findings suggest that the relationship between intelligent test scores and standard measures of creativity is only moderate. Within his triarchic theory, Sternberg defines creativity as the ability to do things that are novel and useful. Creative people can solve problems to which there are no pre-existing solutions and no proven formulas. The truth is, creative people share a number of qualities such as they take chances, refuse to accept limitations, appreciate art and music, use common materials to make unique things, challenge social norms and take unpopular stands, and challenge ideas that other people accept at face value. Creative problem solving demands divergent thinking rather than the convergent thinking. So when we say convergent thinking, the thought is limited to present facts. The problem solver narrows his or her thinking to find the best solution. An example to this is when you use your convergent thinking to arrive at the answer to a multiple choice. While divergent thinking, on the other hand, is the when the problem solver associates purely to the elements of the problem, allowing leads to run a nearly limitless course. An example of divergent thinking is when you are trying to generate ideas to answer an essay question on a test. Problem solving kinds can be both kinds of thinking, so both are interrelated. For example, at first, divergent thinking helps generate many possible solutions, while convergent thinking is then used to select likely solutions and reject others. So now that we have begun speaking of scores on intelligence tests, let's see how psychologists go about measuring intelligence. So here are the measuring tools or the measuring scales that we use for the intelligence. First, the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. Early in the 20th century, the French public school system was looking for a test that could identify children who were unlikely to benefit from regular classroom instruction. So, the first version of the test that Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon developed came into use in 1905. Since that time, it has undergone extensive revision and refinement. The current version is the Standard Binet Intelligence Scale or the SBIS. Binet assumed that intelligence increases with age, so older children should get more items right than younger children does. Binet therefore concluded a series of age-graded questions, such as this one, arranged in order of difficulty. So Binet-Simon scale yielded a score called a mental age or the MA. The MA shows the intellectual level at which a child is functioning. For example, a child with an MA or mental age of 6 is functioning intellectually like the average 6 years old. In taking the test, children earned months of credit for each correct answer. Their MA was determined by adding up the years and months of credit they have attained. Louis Terman adapted the Binet-Simon scale for use with American children at Stanford University. The first version of the resultant SBIS was published in 1916. The SBIS included more items than the original test and was used with children aged 2 to 16. The SBIS also yielded an intelligence quotient or the IQ rather than an MA. As a result, American educators developed interest in learning the IQs of the pupils, and the SBIS used today with children from the age of 2 upward and with the adults. The IQ reflects the relationship between a child's mental age and his or her actual or chronological age, the CA. Use of this ratio reflects the fact that the same MA score has different implications for children of different ages. That is, an MA of A is an above average score for a 6 years old, but below average for a 10-year-old. In 1912, German psychologist Wilhelm Stern suggested the IQ as a way to deal with this problem. Stern computed IQ using this formula. IQ is equals to mental age or MA over chronological age or CA times 100. So here is the standard Binet 5th edition SB5 classification. So we can say that a child or an adult has a very gifted or highly advanced IQ if he got or if his IQ is in the range of 145 to 160. And on the other hand, moderately impaired or delay if he has 40 to 54. Next is the Wechsler scale. In contrast to the SPIS, David Wechsler developed a series of scales for use with children and adults. The Wechsler scales group test questions into a number of separate subtests, and each subtest measures a different intellectual task. For this reason, the tests show how well a person does on one type of task, example, defining words, as compared with another. Example again is using blocks to construct geometric designs. In this way, the Wechsler scales highlight children's relative strengths and weaknesses, as well as measure overall intellectual functioning. Wechsler describes some of his scales as measuring verbal tasks and others as assessing performance tasks. In general, verbal subtests require knowledge of verbal concepts, whereas performance subtests require familiarity with spatial relations concept. Wechsler scales permit the computation of verbal and performance IQs. Let us now move on to the last topic under the intelligence, the nature and nurture in intelligence. So we have here two influences on intelligence. First is the genetic influence on intelligence. Research on genetic influences has employed kinship studies, twin studies, and adoptee studies. Let's consider each of these to see whether heredity affects intellectual functioning. When we say heritability, the degree to which the variations in a trait from one person to another can be attributed to or explained by genetic factors. So we can examine the IQ scores of closely and distantly related people who have been reared together or apart. If heredity is involved in human intelligence, closely related people ought to have more similar IQs than distantly related or unrelated people, even when they are reared separately. So if you're going to look at the table, the IQ score of identical twins are more alike than scores for any other pairs. Even when the twins have been reared apart, there are moderate correlation between the IQ scores of fraternal twins, between those of siblings, and between those of parents and their children. Correlation between the scores of children and their foster parents and between those of cousins are weak. The results of large-scale twin studies are consistent with the data. In sum, studies generally suggest that the heritability of intelligence is between 40% and 60%. In other words, about half of the difference between your IQ and the IQ scores of other people can be explained by heredity. Being reared together is therefore related with similarities in IQ. For this reason, the same group of students or studies used to demonstrate a role for the heritability of IQ scores also suggest that the environment plays a role in determining IQ scores. Next is the environmental influences on intelligence. The home environment styles of parenting also affect IQ scores. Children of parents who are emotionally and verbally responsive, furnish appropriate play materials, are involved with their children, encourage independence, and provide varied daily experiences, obtain higher IQ later on. Organization and safety in the home have also been linked to higher IQs and achievement test scores. Other studies support the view that children's early environment is linked to IQ scores and academic achievement. For example, Victoria Malphis and her colleagues found that the home environment was the single most important predictor of scores and IQ tests among children aged 3 to 8. Next is the education. Although intelligence is viewed as permitting people to profit from education, education also apparently contributes to intelligence. Government-funded efforts to provide preschoolers with enriched early environments have led to intellectual gains. Head Start programs, for example, enhance the IQ scores, achievement test scores, and academic skills of disadvantaged children by exposing them to materials and activities that middle class children take for granted. These include letters and words, number books, exercises and drawings, pegs and pegboards, puzzle toys, animals, and dolls. On the other hand, some people's IQ scores and achievements tend to decrease again in the years following the Head Start experience if they return to the less intellectually stimulating environment that preceded the Head Start. Later schooling also contributes to the IQ. When children at about the same age start school year apart because of admission standards related to their date of birth, children who have been in school longer obtain higher IQs. Moreover, test scores tend to decrease during the summer vacation. The findings on intelligence, the home environment, and educational experience show that much indeed can be done to enhance intellectual functioning in children.